Part 47. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 461. Chapter 461 Poisonous. When Yu Lingfeng arrived at the piano room, Xia Ying and Stefan were still very involved in practicing the piano. However, as soon as Yu Lingfeng appeared, Xia Ying's bracelet rang. Xia Ying stopped practicing the piano and ran towards Yu Lingfeng. Stefan was stunned in place, with no emotion on his face, but his clear eyes still took on a gloomy color after seeing Yu Lingfeng. Xia Ying looked up at Yu Lingfeng and asked, "Yu Lingfeng, has your case been solved?" Yu Lingfeng shook his head, his expression full of warmth, and he stared at Xia Ying, "But I have nothing to do, so I came to find you while I had nothing to do." Xia Ying heard this and showed a faint smile. "By the way, when will you return to China?" "There's about a week left," Xia Ying replied. "By the way, Stefan and I will have a piano performance tomorrow at the Vienna Golden Hall. Do you want to go see it?" Yu Lingfeng naturally nodded. Every time she saw Xia Ying talking about her music, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. She really likes music very much. Even if she has a heavy workload at school, she will always take a fixed time to practice music. It was already normal for Xia Ying to go to bed at 1 or 2 in the middle of the night. Xia Ying went back to practice the piano with Stefan. Yu Lingfeng sat aside silently, listening to Xia Ying playing the piano, and looking at her peaceful appearance when she played the piano. Not long after, Chu Sensio came over carrying the love biscuits he carefully prepared. Yu Lingfeng glanced at the plate of dark things with disgust. Yu Lingfeng really couldn't praise Chu Sensio's cooking skills. Even if he has no cooking skills, but he only makes what he calls love cookies all year round, there should be at least some changes and improvements, right? However, Chu Sensio's love cookies were like a pre-coded program. They were hard to swallow and ugly in appearance. They had not changed at all. It is estimated that his cooking skills will stop here. Actually, it tastes bad and looks ugly, but this guy doesn't have a clue. "Cousin Sakura, when you are tired from practicing the piano, come over and try my freshly baked love cookies." Chu Sensio looked at Xia Ying with a smile and said. Stefan was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at the things on Stefan's plate. Isn't this the decoration that Xia Ying told him before? It turned out that such an ugly decoration was made by this person, and he actually forced Xia Ying to eat that plate of food, which was really scary. Stefan stared at the plate of things. The more he looked at it, the darker his face became. Xia Ying's face was full of embarrassment. She was caught by Chu Sensio last time and didn't touch the love cookie he gave her. Chu Sensio was still angry, and now he had developed a new variety. Xia Ying felt that she was doomed this time. Better not to let her diarrhea last until tomorrow's performance. Xia Ying prayed silently in her heart, and then reluctantly walked towards Chu Sensio. Xia Ying carefully picked up a smaller cookie and was about to put it in her mouth. Suddenly stopped by a hand, Xia Ying looked sideways. Stefan was staring at Xia Ying motionlessly with a handsome little face. After taking the biscuit from Xia Ying's hand and putting it down, he looked at Xia Ying with his clear blue eyes. He said word for word, "Yes, poisonous." Chu Sensio's face, which was originally full of joy, immediately turned dark because of those two words written by Stefan. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 462. Chapter 462, More Talented at Studying Poisons. Xia Ying was stunned for 2 seconds, and then burst into unbridled ridicule. Chu Sensio's face became darker and darker. Chu Sensio stood in front of Stefan and said angrily, "You brat, you can talk. Who told you that it was poisonous? The things I, Chu Sensio, made will be poisonous." Stefan rolled his eyes at Chu Sensio, ignored him, and chose to hide behind Xia Ying. Xia Ying was laughing so hard that her waist and abdomen began to feel sore. Cousin Sakura, are you still laughing at me? It's okay to forget that Stefan is ignorant, even Xia Ying laughed at him so mercilessly. Chu Sensio felt that there was no love in this world, it was too cold and scary. Chu Sensio, don't hurt other people's children, Xia Ying continued, he is also thinking about me. Chu Sensio's mouth twitched, so, cousin Sakura, you also think my biscuits are poisonous? Of course not. Xia Ying quickly denied it, but Chu Sensio had already seen what Xia Ying really meant, so he took the initiative. He walked to the side and stuffed several biscuits into his mouth, with a look of grievance on his face. Since you all think it's poisonous, I'll eat it alone. It's such a pity that you can't eat such a delicious and nutritious thing. Although he does not deny that the biscuits before his technology matured did not taste good and did have safety risks. But it's different now. This is version 18.0 of his love cookie. It's absolutely safe and your body will feel great after eating it. Chu Sensio looked like he was eating happily beside him. Xia Ying frowned, wondering if she had gone too far. After all, Chu Sensio also has good intentions. A rich young man like him does not have much cooking skills. But Xia Ying was actually quite touched that he was willing to go to the kitchen for her. With this in mind, Xia Ying prepared to go over and try Chu Sensio's love biscuits. However, before Xia Ying went far, Yu Lingfeng reached out and stopped her. You have a performance tomorrow, so it's better to be cautious. After hearing this, Chu Sensio flattened his mouth in grievance, gritted his teeth, and finished the plate of biscuits. Then, he left without looking back. Xia Ying looked at Chu Sensio's back and said to Yu Lingfeng, is it too much? The turtle dove will be sad. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and said, no, it's time for him to give up. And at this moment, Yu Lingfeng felt that Chu Sensio should pay more attention to his stomach. I hope that after this bad experience, Chu Sensio will be able to discover his own shortcomings and stop forcing himself to make love cookies. Sure enough, at night, Chu Sensio had a stomachache. Although he had been feeling uncomfortable in his stomach before, he had been enduring it and wanted to save face and suffer the consequences. Chu Sensio finally knew. He thought the pain would go away after a while, but he didn't expect his biscuits would have such great staying power. Xia Ying was helpless, looking at Chu Sensio who was sent to the hospital due to food poisoning, and silently clasped her hands and prayed for him in her heart. Big turtle dove, if you have a specialization in your art, don't force yourself. Xia Ying sat in front of Chu Sensio's hospital bed and said. Chu Sensio didn't answer with a dark face, but he really felt ashamed in his heart. It turned out that he was really not a chef. He thinks he is quite talented in studying poisons. Stephen looked at Chu Sensio on the hospital bed and thought to himself, luckily he didn't let Xia Ying eat the plate of biscuits. It's a new week, there will be more updates today. Recommended votes reached 2,200. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 463. Chapter 463. The mainstay of the music industry. The next day, Xia Ying and Stefan's piano performance was held as scheduled. Chu Sensio dragged his half-healthy body and insisted on going over to take a look. This was the first time he saw his cousin Sakura perform at the Golden Hall. What an unforgettable and memorable historical moment. He couldn't miss it. However, after experiencing yesterday's food poisoning incident, Chu Sensio finally figured it out. He wasn't that material, so he might as well give up on the idea of providing nutrition to his cousin Sakura. He can no longer afford this kind of experiment. You seem to be in good spirits, and you recovered quite quickly. Chu Sensio sat down next to Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng glanced at him and said lightly. Chu Shenxia curled his lips and said, "Of course, I'm a weakling who can't be beaten to death." Chu Shenxia looked at the magnificent golden hall with golden walls, and couldn't help but his eyes shone with envy. Cousin Sakura is getting better and better. Chu Shenxia muttered to himself, while Yu Lingfeng didn't answer, but quietly looked at the quiet and beautiful profile on the stage. Xia Ying and Stefan started playing with four hands. The moment the music started playing, everyone in the venue couldn't help but their eyes lit up, and their souls felt the greatest comfort, like rain after a long drought. It is indeed a disciple of Mo Shi. The level of music is really not covered. Stefan and Xia Ying are the most popular pair of golden boy and girl in the music industry. They are still young and already have such superb musical standards. It is difficult to imagine how high they will develop in the future. Mordex was sitting in the first row, looking at Stefan and Xia Ying with relief and satisfaction in his eyes. There was always a peaceful smile on his face, and even the furrows of his wrinkles showed a sense of pride. Someone interviewed Modzi before and asked him what was the most satisfying work in his life. Mordexai replied meaningfully, saying it was Stefan and Xia Ying. He composed too many world-famous songs in his life, but the most important works in his heart were those of his two apprentices. Those two people were so perfect that Modzi could hardly find any flaws in them. They were like fine jade, and he was the craftsman who carefully carved these two pieces of jade, making them appear in front of the world in the most perfect and stunning appearance. After the song was played, the audience below reacted for 2 seconds before they recovered from the musical feast just now. 2 seconds later, everyone in the audience stood up, and thunderous applause resounded throughout the concert hall. Xia Ying and Stefan smiled at each other, their cheeks covered with beads of sweat. But I'm really not tired at all. Music is really the most beautiful thing in the world. Most things get more tiring the more you do them, but music is different. If you immerse yourself in the world of music for a long time, you will only feel more and more incredible about the music. An endless charm. The more you come into contact with it, the more reluctant you will be to let it go. Over time, it becomes an indispensable light in your life. Because of it, your life has hope and becomes more and more exciting. Xia Ying and Stefan took their final call and walked backstage, while Modzi and the others also went backstage. Modzi was very excited and told them that their performance was impeccable and wonderful. They were truly a natural partner. Modexai had heard too many four-handed playing, but the only ones that shocked him so much were Stefan and Xia Ying. These two people will be the pillars of the future music industry. Thanks to the little cuties Liang Ji and Wei Yan 1 star for their rewards. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 464. Chapter 464 has become an unsolved case. Xia Ying and Stefan's performances won the full house's applause. Because this performance was the first time that the two disciples of Modzi collaborated, it attracted many celebrities in the music industry to watch. They all praised Xia Ying and Stefan's performances. After the concert, Xia Ying and Stefan walked towards Yu Lingfeng and the others. Yu Lingfeng saw Xia Ying from a distance, stretched out his arms, and had an intriguing smile on his lips. Seeing this, Xia Ying gave Yu Lingfeng a calm smile. Then he took 3 steps and 2 steps at a time, ran towards Yu Lingfeng, and threw himself directly into Yu Lingfeng's arms. Yu Lingfeng, how are you? Am I doing well today? Xia Ying raised her head and looked at Yu Lingfeng, as if she was begging for praise. Yu Lingfeng reached out and rubbed Xia Ying's hair, and said with a low smile, "Great, you are very eye-catching today." When Xia Ying heard this, she raised her lips and revealed a joyful smile. Stephen stood not far away, looking at Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying who were cuddling together, with a very complicated expression on his face. Chu Shenxiu took a step forward and walked to the place side by side with Stefan. He also looked at Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng, and sighed, "Hey, it's really a mistake to stay here. Hearing this, Stephen looked at Chu Shenxiu with a blank face. Chu Shenxiu just said what he said was in Chinese, and Stefan didn't understand it. Chu Shenxiu looked into Stefan's blue eyes, curled his lips, and explained it to him in English. Stefan didn't say anything after hearing this, he just lowered his eyes, buried his head, and walked forward. After returning home, Stefan suddenly whispered a few words to Xia Ying. Yu Lingfeng watched from the side. Although he said nothing, his sinister eyes kept looking at Stefan. After hearing what Stefan said to her, Xia Ying smiled and said, "Okay, how about noon tomorrow?" Stefan raised the corners of his mouth, smiled faintly, and nodded. Yu Lingfeng, who saw all this, raised his eyebrows. Could it be that there are some secrets between Xia Ying and Stefan that he should not know? At noon the next day, Yu Lingfeng was sitting quietly in the living room, and Officer Song was sending him a message about the case. That case has reached the deadline, but still nothing has been found. The witch has left no clues and cannot be traced. This case suddenly became unsolved. At this time, Xia Ying and Stefan walked out of the piano room. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyes and looked at the two of them. Stefan has been as quiet as a glass doll in a display window, not saying a word, but the whole person is still very pleasing to the eye. There seems to be a special magic power about Stefan. When his clean and translucent pupils like sea water are staring at you, no matter what he has done before, you will surrender to him easily. For Stefan, you will only find him mysterious and distressing, but you will not think of hurting him. So even though Yu Lingfeng was aware of Stefan's special feelings for Xia Ying, Yu Lingfeng couldn't bear to put him on the enemy's side for this person. When did he become infected with those troublesome human emotions? This kind of emotion, similar to sympathy or other emotions, is not a good thing for him. Chu Shenxiu happened to come out at this moment and saw Xia Ying, so he asked, "Cousin Xia Ying, what are you going to do?" End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 465. Chapter 465 Xia Ying cooks Chinese food. I want to cook and make lunch for Stefan. Xia Ying glanced at the quiet and well-behaved Stefan and said, "Stefan has not had a good appetite recently. I thought maybe he would be interested in our Greater China delicacies." Yu Lingfeng, who was sitting on the sofa nearby, heard this and raised his eyebrows. Xia Ying wants to cook and make food for Stefan? He has never been treated like this. Yu Lingfeng looked at Stefan, and Stefan noticed that Yu Lingfeng was looking at him. Then he met Yu Lingfeng's gaze. She pouted her mouth slightly and raised her head, as if she was saying, "Look, Xia Ying is going to cook for me herself. You all don't get this treatment." After hearing this, Chu Shenxiu reacted for a while, then frowned and said, "What? Cousin Xia Ying, can you also cook? Why didn't I know you had this skill?" Xia Ying smiled slightly, "You don't know a lot." After Xia Ying finished speaking, she turned around and walked towards the kitchen. Stefan has been following Xia Ying like a little follower. Chu Shenxiu looked at Yu Lingfeng with confusion on his face, and Yu Lingfeng shrugged, looking like "I don't know either." Xia Ying can cook? He really didn't know this, but he was looking forward to Xia Ying's cooking. Chu Shenxiu walked towards Yu Lingfeng, with dissatisfaction on his face, and sat down next to Yu Lingfeng. "Hey, Yu Lingfeng, do you think Cousin Sakura is particularly good to Stefan?" Chu Shenxiu turned his head and looked at Yu Lingfeng and said, "It's so good. Jealousy drives him apart." Although Yu Lingfeng felt uncomfortable in his heart, he still pretended to be generous and calm on his face. He raised his eyes and communicated with Officer Song on the other end of the phone, chatting with Chu Shenxiu again and again. Stefan is a patient, and Xia Ying is always kind-hearted. Now that they are siblings in the same discipline, it is normal for her to take care of him a little. Chu Shenxiu was stunned after hearing this, and looked at Yu Lingfeng dumbfounded. What did you say? Stefan is a patient? What's the disease? Why didn't he see what kind of patient Stefan was? But it was true that he was weird. He doesn't pay attention when others talk to him, and his eyes are sometimes a little distracted. You can't understand what he is looking at or what he is thinking about. Chu Shenxiu originally thought that he was a weirdo at best, someone as different as Yu Lingfeng. However, he never thought that Stefan was actually a patient. Autism. Yu Lingfeng said calmly. When Yu Lingfeng said this, Chu Shenxiu understood immediately. Isn't this a symptom of autism? Having difficulty socializing, unwilling to communicate with others, and having very few friends around her. No wonder he is so dependent on Xia Ying. Xia Ying likes music as much as he does, and Xia Ying understands and treats him well. That's why Stefan is so special to Xia Ying. Well, in this case I have nothing to say. Chu Shenxiu leaned back and leaned on the sofa, looking as if he was hopeless. It's okay if there was Yu Lingfeng before. If he can't beat Yu Lingfeng, he will accept it. But I didn't expect that now there is another Stefan. Why are so many people competing with him for cousin Sakura? Not long after, Xia Ying came over and called Yu Lingfeng and Chu Shenxiu, "It's time to eat." Chu Shenxiu and Yu Lingfeng were both very interested in Xia Ying's cooking skills, so they quickly left the sofa and walked towards the restaurant. Ah, it's actually even later today. Thanks to the little cuties Liangji, Tong Moyin, Cool Tong. More rewards. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 466. Chapter 466. You are really an all-rounder. Chu Shenxiu looked at a table of delicious Chinese delicacies and swallowed silently as soon as he sat down. How come his cousin Sakura is so awesome? He can actually cook so many dishes. Although he hasn't tasted it yet, just looking at the presentation makes his appetite whet his appetite. Tomato scrambled eggs, mapo tofu, kung pao chicken, braised lion head, fish-flavored shredded pork, braised pork ribs. Chu Shenxiu looked at the entire table of dishes carefully and swallowed while naming the dishes. Damn it, cousin Sakura, you are such an all-rounder. Chu Shenxiu couldn't help but sigh after taking a bite. It's so delicious, so delicious. His cousin Sakura's cooking skills are beyond words. Why didn't he inherit this gene? What he cooks is always dark cuisine, and he even feels embarrassed. Stephen tasted it, and his normally expressionless face felt much more relaxed and happy at the moment. Stefan curled his lips, and a smile gradually spread at the corners of his mouth. How is it delicious? Xia Ying quickly asked if he was there. Stefan held out a thumb, then nodded, his eyes sparkling. It seems like he really likes it. When eating Chinese food, you must eat it with rice to make it taste better. Xia Ying said as she served Stefan a bowl of rice. Then it was handed to Stefan. Stefan didn't know how to use chopsticks, so he tinkered with it for a long time. Xia Ying looked on and smiled, then taught him how to use chopsticks step by step. Xia Ying and Stefan were very close to each other, so close that Stefan could smell the clear and elegant fragrance of Xia Ying, with a faint milky fragrance, which smelled very good. Stefan stared at the soft lines on Xia Ying's chin for a while, and then a cold gaze swept over him. Stefan looked sideways and met Yu Lingfeng, whose face turned dark. Yu Lingfeng stopped eating and stared at Xia Ying and Stefan with an indifferent expression. Although Yu Lingfeng's black eyes like splashing ink couldn't tell what kind of emotions they contained, Stefan felt a little numb when he stared at him like this. Fortunately, Stefan is smart and learns quickly, so this part passed quickly. When did you buy the ingredients? Yu Lingfeng suddenly spoke and stared at Xia Ying. Xia Ying raised her head from her bowl and looked at Yu Lingfeng. I asked the servant to buy it for me this morning. These ingredients can only be bought at special places, and they are all fresh. Xia Ying then asked, how is it, Yu Lingfeng, is it delicious? Yu Lingfeng nodded slightly and took another bite. After eating, Xia Ying squeezed some more juice and handed it to them. Xia Ying walked towards Stefan with a glass of orange juice, and Stefan took it happily. Stefan, you have eaten a lot today, you have a good appetite, Xia Ying said with a smile. Stephen's eyebrows were curved, he nodded with a smile, then opened his mouth and spit out two words, okay, eat. Xia Ying smiled after hearing this. Stephen speaks very slowly, and it is actually quite difficult for him to communicate with others. At the time of the San Diego music competition, I had to tell my reasons for which piece of music I believed to be a Maudsley piece. Stefan rehearsed what he was going to say that day hundreds of times, and finally he was able to say that fluently without being humble or condescending, without letting the people present notice his flaws. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 467. Chapter 467 Music is his only belief. After getting to know Stefan, Xia Ying felt more and more that he was a distressed child. Since childhood, he has never experienced the friendship and happiness of normal children. The world regards him as a music prodigy and calls him the little prince of music. Almost all parents who love music regard Stefan as the ultimate goal of raising their children. To them, Stefan was so perfect. But only Stefan knew that he actually didn't want to live such a life at all. He also just wants to be a normal person, but the outside world is like an eternal to him. He didn't dare to take a step forward. Music was the only thing that could calm him down and make him feel the meaning of life. For Stefan, music is his only belief. Xia Ying thought that since fate made her become Stefan's fellow senior sister, she was willing to take on the responsibility of a senior sister and make the world a little gentler to this young man. I hope his talent can support him to go further, and his flaws will not hinder his pursuit of music. This is also the reason why Stefan has been hiding from the outside world that he is actually an autistic patient. He doesn't want to be pitied or criticized, he just wants to make his music quietly. The years are quiet and peaceful, with no disturbance or noise, which is the best destination for him. More than 2 weeks have passed very quickly. Soon, Xia Ying will leave Austria and return to China with Yu Lingfeng and the others. On the day she went back, Maudzi and Stefan both came to see her off. Of course, there is Xiaoju. Stefan was not aware of Xiaoju's existence at first, but Xia Ying explained it to him later. It was said to be given to him as a friend. Although Xiaoju couldn't speak, he had been accompanying Stefan obediently. Stefan refused at first. He didn't like bugs, and they were such strange bugs. However, after getting along for a long time, Stefan gradually accepted it. This little bug was very spiritual, and Stefan was quickly impressed by it. Xia Ying said to Stefan, "You must take good care of Xiaoju for me." Stefan opened his clear eyes, looked at Xia Ying, and nodded very seriously. Stephen's current knowledge of Xiaoju is just a strange bug sent by Xia Ying, but he doesn't know that the reason why he sleeps so soundly every night is also because of this bug. In the days after Xia Ying left, during the rainy season, when the psychiatrist and a group of people rushed over, they were afraid that something would go wrong with Stefan. But Stefan fell asleep very peacefully and slept soundly. Everyone was surprised by his sudden change, and Modexi also guessed. After Xia Ying came, Stefan's condition seemed to have improved a lot. Stefan's parents and psychiatrist were shocked. In just 2 weeks of getting along, had Xia Ying actually changed Stefan? Stefan always asked Maudzi, "When will Xia Ying come again?" Mordezi would smile and say back to him, "Soon." Stefan would go to the door every morning and look at it twice. He hoped that she would come here early. After returning to China, Luo Xian prepared a delicious meal for Xia Ying. After the meal, the two brothers from the Chu family were about to return to country S to celebrate the new year and would not come back until the beginning of the new year. Luo Xian invited Yu Lingfeng Zihu to celebrate the new year with them, and Yu Lingfeng agreed. 11 Ju hasn't seen Yu Lingfeng for a long time, and has been following Yu Lingfeng like a little follower. Yu Lingfeng also let him go without comment. Chu Shenxiu was eating this delicious meal, but there was no happy expression on his face. He kept pouting, looking particularly aggrieved. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 468. Chapter 468. Let's celebrate the new year with the second elder. Luo Xian noticed something strange about Chu Shenxiu, so she raised her head and asked, 13, what's wrong? Are you unhappy? Chu Shenxiu nodded aggrievedly, and, how about you and cousin Xiaoying come back to country S with us? What's the point of a few people celebrating the new year alone? It would be better to go back to country S and celebrate the new year with the whole family. Luo Xian showed a slightly bitter smile and refused. How can a married daughter return to her parents' home to celebrate the new year? How could Luo Xian not want to go back? However, she was afraid that once she went back, the matter between her and Xia Chuanhai would be exposed. She was not ready to tell them about it before she had fully come out of it. If her parents' family knew about it, they would definitely come to settle the score with Xia Chuanhai. They had also heard about Xia Menjian's incident before. Luo Xian comforted them for a long time, and they didn't come to Xia Chuanhai to argue, so they were forgiven. Later, when Xia Chuanhai kicked Xia Menjian out of the Xia family, the reason given to the outside world was that Xia Menjian was not the daughter of the Xia family, and there was some misunderstanding. Although there are still divergent discussions about this matter in the outside world, the Xia family, a powerful family in the imperial capital, would let a girl who is not related by blood sneak in for no reason. If she is said to be an illegitimate daughter, she is an illegitimate daughter? Xia Chuanhai must have done enough homework before accepting Xia Menjian into the Xia family and investigated for a long time before taking her back. After all, before preparing to take it back, Xia Chuanhai also helped her go through the procedures for transferring her student status. After everything was ready, Luo Xian and the others were told Xia Menjian's identity. Such a careful approach, but in the end he said, admitting his mistake. The outside media is definitely not that easy to fool, but no matter what the outside world speculates. It may be said that Xia Menjian was embarrassed and Xia Chuanhai disowned her. It may be said that Xia Menjian was actually always in the Xia family or was sent abroad by Xia Chuanhai for further study. No one knows the real reason why Xia Chuanhai did this. No one knows that because of this incident, Xia Chuanhai and Luo Xian are now separated and are well on their own. In the past, a beautiful couple that everyone envied, a couple that was full of love for each other no matter when and where they appeared, has now fallen into a state of not having contact with each other until death. Neither Luo Xian nor Xia Chuanhai have made preparations to inform their families or the outside media. Auntie, when did your thoughts become so old? Or, should I stay with you? Chu Shenxiu's last words became lower and lower, and he felt guilty. If his parents, who are far away in a foreign country, knew that their son had such thoughts, they would definitely be so angry that they would fly over and have a male and female double fight. Just at this time, Chu Shenming's cell phone rang. Chu Shenming glanced at it slowly, then handed it to Chu Shenxiu, and said meaningfully, your mother's phone number. Chu Shenxiu's face immediately turned green. Why did he call at this time? Chu Shenxiu answered the phone with a dark face, Mom. The voice was filled with a guilty vibrato. 13, have you boarded the plane? 12 said you can arrive tonight. Not yet, still eating. Then be careful on the road. Remember to call your mother when you arrive. Your father and I will pick you up. Mother Chu chatted a lot with Chu Shenxiu, and Chu Sensio was defeated. Well, he'd better go spend the new year with his second elder. Thanks to the little cuties Saiyi, Hal Cheer, Miss Song for their rewards. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 469. Chapter 469 I Don't Mind Stewing You. At the airport, when Chu Sensio and Chu Shenming were about to board the plane, Chu Sensio approached Yu Lingfeng and threatened him in a holy voice that only the two of them could hear clearly. Yu Lingfeng, I'm warning you, even if I'm not here, you can't bully my cousin Xiaoying. Yu Lingfeng ignored him. Chu Sensio's face darkened. Why is this guy so arrogant? I'll be back soon, just be more honest. Chu Sensio reiterated it again. At this time, a loud voice came from behind Chu Sensio, Old Turtle Dove. Everyone looked around and saw a tall young man standing not far away, wearing a casual jacket and ripped jeans. The young man was fully armed, wearing a mask and a hat. The brim of the hat was lowered very low, and his thin lips were pursed slightly, giving people a sense of alienation that was not easy to get close to. The young man opened his long legs and walked towards the crowd. As he approached, Chu Sensio raised his head slightly, looked at the young man with a look of disdain, and looked at him from top to bottom. Oh, the sun is really shining in the west. Didn't someone say that he didn't want to see me, but he was so kind and came to see me off? Chu Sensio curled his lips and showed an evil smile. Jun Chenai took off his sunglasses and looked at Chu Sensio with half-squinted eyes. He looked like he would pounce on Chu Sensio in the next second and eat Chu Sensio alive without spitting out the bones. When Chu Sensio saw this, he swallowed silently and suddenly felt a bad feeling in his heart. Looking at Jun Chenai like this, it doesn't look like he's here to see him off at all. It's not like he's just seeing him off at the end. Chu Sensio curled his lips and looked at Jun Chenai as if nothing had happened. Why, are you trying to eat people like this? Jun Chenai glanced at Chu Sensio coldly. If it's not illegal to eat people, I don't mind stewing you. Xia Ying and other melon eaters looked on in confusion as to what was going on. Aren't Jun Chenai and Chu Sensio good friends? Is friendship so fragile and falling apart so quickly? What's wrong with me? I was just kidding you. Chu Sensio shrugged his shoulders and said disapprovingly. Jun Chenai was so angry that his forehead was about to burst into flames. Chu Sensio, I want to ask you, did you tell everyone in the server that Jun Chenai is not arrogant is my ID? When Chu Sensio heard this, he subconsciously raised his lips and revealed a malicious smile. This smile hurt Jun Chenai's eyes. He knew it was Chu Sensio, the old turtle dove. As soon as he went online today, the walk background news exploded. They were playing games and rushing to kill him. What a game! Those who don't know think he has installed a cheat, questioning the authenticity of his ranking first in the server. Chu Sensio noticed that Jun Chenai's emotions were approaching the breaking point, so he quickly hid behind Chu Shenming and shouted, "Brother, save me." However, Chu Shenming made an action that everyone present did not expect. Chu Shenming directly pulled Chu Sensio out, brought it to Jun Chenai, and said helplessly with a sullen face, 13 is indeed too much, is to teach a lesson. Chu Sensio was confused for a moment. Damn it, is this his brother who cheated his younger brother? Jun Chenai walked towards Chu Sensio with a gloomy face, ready to beat him, but Chu Sensio slipped directly behind Xia Ying like a loach, grabbed Xia Ying's shoulders with his hands, and said tremblingly, "Xia Ying cousin, save me." Guess what Xia Ying will do? 23,333. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 470. Chapter 470 Being clever is being misled by cleverness. Sure enough, When Jun Chennai saw Chu Sensio getting behind Xia Ying, he unconsciously lowered his hand movements, then gritted his teeth angrily and looked at Chu Sensio behind Xia Ying through Xia Ying. Chu, please be a man, you are hiding behind a girl, come out. Chu Sensio said arrogantly, I won't. After speaking, he deliberately stuck out his tongue to provoke Jun Chennai's anger. Jun Chennai clenched his fists, he really wanted to crush this person. However, the next second, Yu Lingfeng stretched out his hand, pulled Xia Ying over, pushed Chu Sensio aside, and said in a cold voice, men and women cannot be intimate. Chu Sensio. Damn you Lingfeng, are you kidding me? I remember clearly what you did to my cousin Xia Ying in the little ledger in my heart. Chu Sensio ran away, followed closely by Jun Chennai, chasing after him. Chu Sensio, the old turtle dove, wants to put all his old grudges and new grudges together today. He will beat him until he is black and blue when he returns to Country S. Let's see if those little fans of Country S will like him when they see his bad appearance. Seeing that Jun Chennai was about to catch up with him, Chu Sensio suddenly became wise and shouted loudly to the crowds at the airport, Jun Chennai, the national male Jun Chennai. Jun Chennai was stunned. Before he could realize what was happening, fans from all directions were rushing towards him like a rising tide. Jun Chennai didn't have any time to react. When he came to his senses, he was already overwhelmed by the girls. Mr. Jun, what an idol. Young Master Jun, I love you just like a mouse loves rice. Jun Chennai, I like you very much, can you give me an autograph, you can also take a photo with me. Jun Chennai quickly waved his hands and said, no, 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 you have recognized the wrong person. I am not Jun Chennai. Liar, your voice betrays you. That's right, Mr. Jun, we really like you. Jun Chennai's face was covered with black lines. On the other hand, Chu Sensio, who was not far away, was actually laughing so hard that he was hugging his stomach. Jun Chennai gritted his teeth and stared at him. Next time he encounters this guy, he will definitely make him look good. Hold on, why wait until next time? Jun Chennai suddenly raised his lips, showed a wicked smile, and said to the group of girls surrounding him, you said you like me, but what if someone bullies me? Kill him. Bite him to death. Destroy him. Jun Chennai is very satisfied with the uniform slogan, which is also one of the benefits of being a star. You never know how much your true fans love you. Chu Sensio's smile froze when he heard this strange slogan. After realizing something was wrong, Chu Sensio silently prepared to escape. But at this time, Jun Chennai pointed at him with a wicked smile on his face and said to his fans, well, that's that person. He is a particularly terrible bastard. He goes to my house every day to harass me, and I have to be raped. He got depressed. When the girls heard this, they all turned to look at Chu Sensio. This hateful man actually dared to attack their young master Jun. He was so impatient. Chu Sensio looked at the hundreds of pairs of eerie eyes in front of him and stared at him, and he swallowed in fear. Jun Chennai laughed happily on the side, ha ha ha, Chu Sensio, do you know what it means to be smart but be misled by your cleverness? Chu Sensio saw that the army of girls was about to come over and crush him, so he quickly took off his mask to verify his identity. I'm Chu Sensio. Is there my little Juju here? Single player writing is so boring. Where are my little cuties? Give it a shout in the comment area. End of this chapter.